Be forewarned, this episode contains explicit language. Hello, wannabes and creators, and welcome to another episode of The Business of Art, the podcast that attempts to demystify art for businessmen and business for artists. Today we're talking to Kat Ranson. She is an artist from New Zealand, so she is our first Kiwi guest. And the reason I brought her on is because she works remotely with almost all of her clients. So she lives in an area that's not New York, Los Angeles, London, Tokyo. She doesn't live at the center of the art world. However, she still is able to make a living and make a business based on just the quality of her work. So I wanted her to come on and talk about exactly how she does that, because I know a lot of you as artists are in areas that aren't necessarily accessible to an artistic hub where you can go and find work. So I really hope you enjoy this interview. Remember, we're running a Kickstarter right now at Kickstarter.com for our project, My Father Didn't Kill Himself. Now, it's a novel. It is the second novel that we're releasing, and the first one we're bringing to Kickstarter. It is a black comedy mystery about a girl who finds out her father commits suicide. So she sets out to prove that it's a murder so she can collect on her life insurance policy and they don't lose their childhood home. So we are also, in conjunction with this, running a mini episode series, which is about our creation of the Kickstarter and our launching of it. That comes out every Friday. This podcast comes out every Tuesday. So if you're subscribed, you will just get the episode into your inbox just like anything else. So I highly recommend that if you're interested in crowdfunding or Kickstarter or anything like that, you take a moment and hit subscribe so you can figure out exactly how we're doing and what we think about the way that our Kickstarter is going. On top of that, if you are interested in doing a Kickstarter, please check us out at Kickstarter University, at kickstarteruniversity.com, or at Wannabe Press at wannabepress.com if you're interested in webcomics and the rest of the publishing that we do. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you at the end. Hello, wannabes and creators, and welcome back to another episode of The Business of Art, the podcast that tries to demystify business for artists and art for businessmen. Today, we have Kat Ranson, awesome artist, and our first Kiwi guest. So, Kat, how about you tell us, what are you passionate about?
Art, writing, music, reading, everything.
Well, that's good.
Anything and everything creative. So. Well,
that's good. So let's talk about sort of your origin story. So you're 26 now. How did you get to where you are now? Where did it all begin for you?
When I was 18, I started drawing. And then I studied animation, 2D animation for 3 years. And in my third year of study, I did a bit of freelance animation work. And
how did you go about getting your first freelance job?
Basically, people were like, we need artists to do X amount of work and to do that, and I was put my name forward with a copy of my portfolio, and yeah, they chose me.
Okay, and where was that?
It goes back to when I studied. I kept a lot of my contacts from there, and so it just came through one of my contacts, networking, and they put feelers out and whatnot, so.
And then how did you take that and parlay it into the next job, and how did you build your career from that first job to, the next job?
Because I knew it was only going to be a temporary thing, I kept looking for more work and basically building up my own portfolio and working on my own style and my weak points, building them into strong points, and then going back to weaker points and so forth. And just basically kept looking, same as what I do now. I just keep looking for the next job. I keep put myself out there, and a lot of promotional stuff. 90, well, half my business hours work time is spent pimping myself out, basically.
Okay. Well, let's focus on that because I think that's an incredibly important part of what, artists have to do. How do you go about pimping yourself out, as you say?
Well, it kind of feels like I'm pimping myself out. Basically, I make an advert or even just sharing my art on social media sites like Instagram, if it's a physical item, or Facebook, or Twitter, or DA, or FA, or whatever art site. Multiple platforms across the internet, because the internet is, I find, especially since I'm so isolated in New Zealand, it's quite a small community, and so to branch out from their internet and just share pieces that I've done with notes saying I'm open for commissions. Occasionally I'll actually post a special or a deal, something to attract people.
Okay, so I assume that some of the networking you do, like it's all not just all your own promotion, right? You're also, sharing other people's stuff and getting involved in that. How do you go about building your personality on social media, which I find is such a huge deal?
I comment on other people's. I promote, particularly my friends, because they're my friends, but also artists that I just happen to like or stumble across. I'll share them. Or I usually try and say kind things about upcoming artists or new artists. I try to help them, offer a bit of critique or advice, but also something positive.
Right. Do you go back to them afterwards? And are you doing this strategically to, build your contacts? Do you have a plan when you're commenting on them? Or are you just really just getting excited about the stuff that you guys do?
I just get excited and I can't help but comment. And I feel like one of my tutors once told us, don't be an island. Share, help each other, that kind of stuff. And I've kind of kept to that, in that I like to help people. I like seeing artists grow, and a lot of my friends have come through those comments of, sometimes I will, if I particularly see potential, I will keep an eye on the artist or person and comment and help them, and it's always exciting seeing their artwork grow and their confidence grow as well. It's a confidence thing as well, because people did it to me and I want to return the favor.
Yeah, I think that's important. They say you should serve your audience 10 times more than you ask them for anything. And do you find that holds true for you? Like with your own commissionees and the people that commission you?
Yes. I very rarely have to deal with a pain in the butt commissioners. I've seen nightmare stories about people who commission people, commissionees. I've heard some bad stories about them, but I've never seemed to have experienced that myself, so mostly positive experiences.
And do you think that goes back to how you build your own brand, or?
I think so. I try to showcase myself as a nice person, but I also don't tolerate shit.
So let's go back, because you've been talking about putting proposals together and doing that, and it's something we haven't really covered here that much. So how do you go about finding this sort of work, and then how do you go about putting a proposal together for that work afterwards?
Depending on the type of work, sometimes it might even be someone on a social media website saying, like Facebook, saying, I am after someone to draw X character and I have X amount of money. If that's the case, I then go, right, well, here's my price guide overall. here are the things specifically that are within your budget. Usually helps if they have a budget. Specifically within your budget. And then I'll go through and I'll pick out the best examples of my work from the categories that fit within their budget.
Right. And you are not doing any, preliminary sketches until they're hiring you, right?
Yeah, I don't tend to, I know other artists in the industry do, but I don't tend to do that myself. Partly because I have a lot of time restriction. In fact, I don't have a lot of time. Usually my time gets interrupted fairly frequently. Is what happens when you're a mother. And so I like to be efficient.
Right. So I want to switch gears for a second, because I think basically what you're saying is you find these online, so you're going to DeviantArt or you're going to other forums, or how are you going about getting the job? Like, what forums are you going to find these jobs? I mean, let's unpack it that low, because there are some people that are going to be watching this haven't ever gotten their first professional job yet.
Social media is a good one for finding even stuff just like general commission, like static images and commission work. There's tons of people, Facebook even, that I've seen, if you just peruse, that are looking for artists and stuff. Then there's DA forums, LinkedIn forums, or I have quite a few artist friends as well, and occasionally they'll recommend me to someone to commission. FA forums, although I find FA isn't very good because it's more about, you don't really get out there as much. It's very hard to get noticed there. I find social media easier to get noticed.
And just so our audience is clear, what are DA and FA?
DA is DeviantArt. FA is Affinity.
Awesome. So there's a couple of ways that they can go about finding art. Now, here's something that I want to talk about, because we work with a lot of international artists like yourself who are isolated from everybody else. So the challenges of being an artist, outside of a major metropolitan area, outside of an area that has a lot of art.
Locally, I live in an area that's quite touristy and arty anyway, just where I happen to live locally. But in terms of the world, or an international scale, I find the most difficult thing is time zones. A lot of people are awake when I'm actually asleep. For example, right now it's 9:30 in the morning for me on a Saturday. I believe it's
12:30 on a Friday for me right now. So yes, it's a lot different.
Yeah. I've only been awake for a couple of hours, whereas a lot of people would be going to bed at this point, or later in the afternoon when I'm more active, they're asleep or just waking up or going to work. I find that to be the biggest hazard.
Okay, and what about shows? Do you do a lot of shows?
There are, if you know where to look. We have, where I am, we have quite a popular market once a week, oddly enough on a Saturday, and where you can take artwork down to sell or craft items, because I also craft.
Most of the artists that we have that are out of the area that we work with personally, they are in isolated areas. When I say isolated, I don't mean in Antarctica. I mean they're away from a larger city. They're away from a way to interact with comic book people or print people. They don't have a large network of other people around. But it sounds like,
in terms of connecting, like talking to comic people and print people, I am. isolated from those types of people. It's just a different crowdsourcing.
Right, but you found a way to do something to get that same ability to connect with your audience just by going to these craft fairs instead of going to these Comic Cons, right? Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then, how is your writing different than your art? I know they're all both art, but like your actual drawing, how is that different than your writing?
I don't promote it as much, mostly because I feel online it doesn't have. Depends where you lurk online, I suppose. The same amount of recognition as visual pieces. People like looking at things. Not a lot of people these days seem to have time and patience to read something as long as a novel. So I tend to work on my novels as a more personal thing, but one of my goals is actually to get one of my works published in the near future.
And how are you going about doing that?
I was going to have a chat to you about that, Russell.
Well, you know what I would say. I would say you should run a Kickstarter for it, or.
But you're a huge fan of Kickstarters.
I'm a huge fan of Kickstarters. You know why? Because you own your list, and when you talk about owning a mailing list, it is the most important thing to me in all of marketing is to own the people that buy your product, because if you own the list of the people that buy your product, then you can launch basically any product. So you have an ideal client avatar, whether you've found it or not yet. Not you, Kat, because you seem to have one. But everybody has an ideal client avatar, whether they've created it or not. The people that respond best to their work. And by having that ability to connect directly with them and have them pay for your work, you are building a relationship with the best kind of mailing list there is, which is the kind of mailing list that people 10 years ago would have killed for. People that not only like your art, but are willing to plop down money for it.
Those are the best kinds of people.
They are the best kinds of people.
They put food on the
Yes, they put food on your table. They put food on your table. So by having a Kickstarter, even if it's a small one at first, you're doing a couple of things. You're validating your idea that it's good. You're building an audience, and you're showing that you can deliver something. Now, you're an artist, so moving into novels would be difficult.
I started out writing. I've been writing longer than I've been drawing.
Even for us, like we're launching this Kickstarter in a couple of weeks. Probably by this time we'll be deep. By the time this launches, it'll be deep into the Kickstarter. But we are constantly worried that we're known as a comic book company. Like we publish comic books. Russell Nolte is a comic book writer. Our next book is a novel. So even me, who is known as a writer and an editor and a publisher, am not known as a person who writes prose. So by putting us out there as this other thing and putting us out there on Kickstarter as this other thing, we are in serious potential trouble of not being able to connect with the same audience that we connected to on our previous two successful Kickstarters. However, it will allow us to connect with the few or the hopefully many, many people that from our previous Kickstarters and from our Wannabe Press days who do want our book and grow a different kind of audience. So for you...
Kind of like expanding your brand.
Yeah, so you have a brand. I have a brand. My brand is misanthrope, subversive, punk, rocky kind of. So I have a brand. I mean, I think anyone would be able to identify the Wannabe Press brand. You know, it stands for a couple of things. You know, it stands for being subversive, anti-religion, anti-authoritative, and blunt as the day is long. So, you know, that is the kind of person that is an avatar for us. as far as the person that we want to connect with and that connects best with our brand. We're not after religious. We're not after a lot of other audiences. We're not after, traditional long book audiences. We're not after nonfiction. We're after a very specific kind of person. And in that way, we've been able to make Ichabod and Katrina and My Father Didn't Kill Himself and our future books all fit towards that same ideal client avatar. So it is expanding the format of what we know as a brand, but it is not expanding necessarily the avatar that we're focusing to. It is my belief, and I know, that if you like Katrina and Ichabod, you will like My Father Didn't Kill Himself if you give it a try. Because it is made for the same kind of person who likes Ichabod and Katrina. However, getting those people to actually trust that you are a quality writer in a different format, or trust that as an artist you are also an author, is very difficult, which is where Kickstarter comes in. Because if you are a human being who is published, guess what happens when you publish a book, even if it's at the biggest name publisher? How much publishing and how much marketing and how much promotion do you think is going to be allotted to you, Kat Ranson? Yes. So all you get is the fancy Random House name and absolutely zero marketing dollars. Now, you get some sales, right? I mean, just by having Random House, you'll get some sales. You'll probably get a Publisher Weekly kudos for that. Something will happen that will help boost your sales. However, Random House owns that audience, and they own the list of people who bought from you and the stores that bought from you. And you're giving away a huge amount of money to them for the right for them to publish the book, while they own the audience, right? They own the audience. So if you own the audience, you don't have to worry ever about not being able to launch a book. You can test. Heck, you can do a $200 Kickstarter to launch a novel or launch a book and do a short run of something and just build an audience from there and prove that your book is good and prove that you have an audience. And then guess what? If your book does $10,000, do you think that Random House is going to be more or less likely to sign you after that? Yes. Now, do you think your advance is going to be more or less if you can prove that you can raise $10,000 on Kickstarter? Yes. Now, third, how much marketing dollars do you think they're going to put behind a book that already has a proven and validated concept?
All of the monies.
Yeah, not all of it, but a lot of money. Way more money. If they know that they can make money off a thing, they're going to put way more money behind it, right?
That's the same with any company, though. If you've been proven in the past to make money, they're going to throw money at you.
Yes, and here's the thing with artists. Artists don't think like that. Artists don't think like companies. That's the whole point of this podcast, is every other company that's in tech on Kickstarter or in design on Kickstarter or in any business on Kickstarter or without being on Kickstarter, they think like this. They think about prototyping their idea to release it to a bigger audience or to get a mainstream brand or to build their own e-commerce store or to get a large company to buy it, like Random House. Artists don't think like that.
They should, because being an artist, technically you're a businessman. You're self-employed.
Yes, that's exactly.
You're running your own little business.
Exactly.
Essentially.
Exactly. That is absolutely true. However, that is not how we see it as artists. I mean, do you think that most artists think the way that business owners think about their business.
No, they don't.
Absolutely. They absolutely do not. And if we as an artist community were smart, which we are, we just don't want to think about business. We want us to be artists. We want to think.
We want to create. We don't
Yes.
want to business.
But business is very creative. I mean, the ideas of how to market and how some of these companies like come up with their promotional strategies is brilliant and incredibly innovative. However,
and they do a lot of research towards their target audiences, the best way to reach that.
They do, and that is what we should all be doing. We should all of us be thinking of us as a business first, because
I think that's a lot where the self-promotion comes in too. That's more businessy side.
It's about the promotion. It's about look. Do you think?
Reaching to
do you
people.
really think that Canva, which is down your neck of the woods, though not your country, do you think that they would rather spend their time promoting and marketing, or do you think they'd rather spend their time designing cool things to put on Instagram and designing cool pieces and new parts of their product?
Designing. Of course, designing. Every designer prefers designing over promoting.
Right, but that company would rather do that. Now, do you think an air conditioning repair shop would rather spend their time repairing air conditioners or promoting in local papers?
Repairing.
Absolutely. We would all rather deal with our core competency. Every business owner. So us as artists are not secluded in this world. We are not secluded in we want to be working on our art. Every business owner would rather be working on their core competency because that's why they got in business.
Exactly. It's why we do what we do.
Exactly. And your core competency being in animation and art, my core competency on one of my companies is in communication, another one is in teaching, another one is in publishing. I would much rather be doing my core competencies than figuring out what the audience turnover is and the click-through rate is of my ad and running a bunch of validation testing. Because that's what my core competency is. That's what I enjoy. That being said, we tend to think of ourselves as artists as not business people and as different than the kinds of people that own businesses. But we're really not. We just have a different core competency.
Our process is different.
Yes, we just have a different way that we want to make money. But make no mistake about it. Like I talked about beggar mentality in a previous show. You know, the idea that we are going hat in hand to ask for people to do our commissions is ridiculous. It's true. But it's ridiculous to think of it that way because if I flipped it back on you, the McDonald's is doing the same thing. They are begging you to come in and buy their hamburger, right?
Pretty much.
Yes, but you find so many artists who go and say, I don't want to beg. Like, I don't like Kickstarter. I don't like promoting myself because it feels like I'm begging people to buy from me. And that mentality is switched, is screwed up because every single company that exists is begging you on some level to buy their product. They all are. Every single one of them.
There are lots of different ways to promote yourself, though, without people thinking,
yes.
They're begging.
Well, that's the point, is like McDonald's doesn't come across as begging, though. Do you think when you look at a McDonald's ads, they're begging for my business?
Depends how desperate the ad looks. For the most part, no. For the most part, it comes across as, we have this product.
Yeah, and it's excellent. And here's why it's excellent, because it has 2 beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. That's why it's awesome. Um,
Yeah. They're like, this is
yes.
awesome, you want
So
it.
for us,
We'll dress up the language so that it appears more
exactly.
awesome.
And so when we look at ourselves as artists, as how are we any different than McDonald's? Like, we're not. We have a product that everybody wants. Everyone wants to have a cool art print, or they want to have a cool book, or they want to have a nice sculpture, or they want to have a cool little like Instagram. They want the thing.
They want the thing that we are promoting, that we are selling. But they don't know they want it unless we tell them they want it.
Yeah. And if McDonald's came and said, buy my thing,
Most people would go, no.
right. But if you say, hey, look at how cool my thing is, 2 all beef patties, blah, 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 that, then suddenly people are like, oh, I do kind of want that thing.
That's cool. I want it. It's special. It's awesome. It's all those good, positive adjectives used to describe said product.
Let's talk about Apple. I mean, Apple is a king of promotion. They have the best marketing on the planet. People line up for a phone every year that is the same phone they just bought a year ago. They line up around the block for it. And does it ever feel like they are begging for your money? No, but guess what? They are begging for your money. They're just doing it in a very, very nice way. They're doing it in a way that isn't begging, that's saying, look at how cool this is. You need this in your life. Right, exactly. So if we just take that and flip it to art, like, that's not begging either. It's not begging to say, hey, I have this book. It's on Kickstarter now. It's on this place now. Hey, I just loaded 2 more prints on my site. Look at how cool they are. They're 8 by 10. It's Adventure Time meets Steven Universe, and they're punching Jesus. Whatever it is, like, oh, that is cool. I would like to buy that, but only if you know what it is. So that's really the impetus of the show, and we've got way off topic now. Now I've been ranting for like 10 minutes, but I'm excited. Like, I'm hyped about that part of it.
It's important ranting. Interesting ranting.
It's supposed to be about the guest, and this episode definitely went off a rail, and this episode's about me ranting about why we. Yeah, well, marketing and devaluing your worth as an artist, because that's what it really comes down to, in my opinion, is because we've been taught that art is this thing that is not business. Yes, art is a luxury. Oh, you're an artist. Oh, he's not about money. He's an artist. He's just in his own little world. Well, screw that. Like, I'm in my own little world, but I also want to make money. Like, I want to make money because I don't want to have a job. I want to be able to do this as my job. Yeah. This is my job. And just like you who works for 40 hours at the DMV, I also work for 80 hours at this job, doing the best thing that I possibly can to bring things to an audience. And if I want to do this thing, I have to tell people about it. And it is not devaluing me to ask you to pay me for it. Because just because a thing is fun doesn't mean I should do it for free.
I still got bills to pay, food to put on the table, rent to pay.
Yeah, but because you've been told for so long, hey, you're an artist. You're an artist. You don't need money. This isn't about the money for you. This is about the passion. And we've been drilled into it since birth that, like, if you're an artist, you're just destined to live poor. That's
actually one of the things that we covered while I was studying animation was marketing and talking about the industry. And we had world-renowned people. Like, we had the guy who did all the concept art for the Fable games and that kind of stuff, and we talked about like the marketing, and so it for me, it kind of broke down the stereotypical artists are poor, artists struggle to live, that's what being an artist is like, to you need to promote, you need to market, it's okay to ask for an amount that is worth your time and effort and resources and training and is worth your product.
Absolutely. So, we've covered a lot of different... I'm going to do that when I'm not screaming. We've covered a lot of stuff today. I could probably rant about devaluing your life as an artist for another 6 hours, but...
I probably could too. I think devaluing yourself, your art, also devaluates yourself as a person. My product isn't worth the amount that it should be worth. Therefore, I'm not worth that much.
I think that's absolutely, what you see as people. When I talk to artists, people don't think that they're worth that amount because people have been telling them that they're not worth that amount forever. And historically, we have not been worth that amount because we have told ourselves and other people have told us that we're not worth that amount. And it's just not fair. Nobody would ever go and buy a car and say, well, you should just make this car for the love of it. No one would go to an auto mechanic and say, repair this car for the love of it. But there are mechanics that love it. Mechanics love their job. They love dealing with cars. A lot of them, probably not all of them, but a lot of them love dealing with cars. They love dealing with cars as much as I love writing. So,
yeah, my dad's a mechanic, so I happen to know this firsthand, but he's a diesel mechanic, so he worked on like dump trucks and diggers and stuff like that, and he loved it, but he'd never asked to do it for free.
Doctors must love their job because they spend 8 to 10 years learning to do it. So they love the thing they do, and yet they are never asked, give me an MRI for free. So I think it's very important to value your art and value yourself as a business, because if you don't value yourself as a business, if you value yourself only as the art part of it, then you won't be taken seriously. Right? Just like if someone said, I want to work on cars, la-di-da-di-da, let's work on cars now, like, no one would take that person seriously either.
No, they wouldn't, and they would find that they didn't get as much, if any, business as they potentially could if they said, I'm working on cars, it's going to cost this amount for me to repair this problem on your car.
You have a shop that has a lift on it as opposed to doing it in front of your house. Like, if you have office hours and an email address and a website, and if you do advertising in local papers and all of these other things that you do if you're an auto mechanic and you want...
Exactly. As an artist, I try being the keyword, to keep business hours. I try to keep them in line with my husband so that we can still spend time together. He works 8 to 4:30, so I try to work from 8 to 4:30 with a lunch break in between. So it also helps having structure around your business. If you sit down and say, right, Monday to Friday, I'm going to work 9 to 5, I'm going to have half an hour to an hour lunch break at 12:30. And from there, it's easier to focus, think of it as a business and be focused and to sit down to get the work done. I think artist block is a bit of a cop-out. Saying I have artist block is a cop-out.
Nobody says I have doctor block.
Yeah, we all have bad days as people, it happens, but saying I have artist block is a cop-out. Just say, I have a bad
Yeah.
day.
I mean, look, we're not going to get into that old J.R.R. Martin email that he sent out and how much horse crap that I think that it is. But basically, like, you need to, if you believe that the work is important and if it is your job, and if that is how you expect to make income, you do it. And we, as artists, are freelancers and entrepreneurs. Every single one of us. We're really nothing more than freelancers and, more importantly, entrepreneurs. In whatever you do, whether it's an internet marketing freelancing entrepreneur, whether it's a tech entrepreneur, whether it's a somebody who does tech support, whatever it is, as the entrepreneurial class, like, that's what we are, and we're all taking a business. Whether you think of your art as a business or not, it's a business. It is. It's business. Congratulations, you own a business if you're an artist.
Woohoo!
So, if you are running a business, then you have to think about it like a business. It's not like rocket science. I'm not trying to show you how to get to the moon in 30 days. I'm trying to show you very easily to open your eyes, and that as an entrepreneur, you might want to think of yourself as a business and grow it. And it's very enlightening and it's very encouraging when you actually let yourself be open to the business part of it, because suddenly you're thinking about marketing. You're thinking about how to grow the people that like your product, and people start liking your product and paying you for your product, and they start like enjoying the thing that you have, and suddenly, like, life's not so bad. Because previously, when you were an artist by yourself in your own little corner, like, nobody.
Don't be an island.
And when you're on your own, you're like, well, nobody likes my art, nobody wants to do it. But when you open yourself up to the business part of it, suddenly, like, people are buying it, and you're like, oh, people actually like my work. Oh, people want to see it. It's this.
There's the validation.
Yes, and then you start doing more, and you start, instead of being slumped down, hunched over, you start puffing your chest up and saying, maybe I can actually do this, because there's a little corner of the internet and a little corner of the world that people like the thing that I do. And it's an amazing transformation if you let it. But if you insist on just being the art side of it, it's just like being just the mechanic side of it, or just any other side of it. You can't do that without the business part of it, because without the business,
it doesn't sustain itself.
And you can't make money, and you're going to be working your crappy Starbucks or Target job forever, or whatever. Even if it's a high-powered job, if you're a marketing executive and you don't want to do that, you're going to keep doing that forever, unless you can think of your job and your art as a business.
It is a business.
The spreadsheets and the marketing and the tax advice and all of the horrible things that come with a business, all the contracts and all the lawyers and everything that comes with every other business is also there with art. But when you do that part that nobody likes, there's a business person life. There's not a lawyer life who wants to read a 50-page contract. None. Zero. When you do that part, it allows you to do this other part that you love. And not only
and it also stops you from getting taken advantage of.
Oh, how often are artists taken advantage of? I mean, we haven't even touched that part of it.
Oh, I could go on all day about that.
Yeah. I mean, it happens all the time.
Well, for example, when I first started out, I did free art. That is always a trap that it's very hard to get out of, because once you give something to people for free, they always expect it to be free. And transitioning from the free to commissions took a very long time.
I can only imagine that it takes a long time, and if you don't have a strategic plan or a 5-year, 10-year plan, or even a 1-year plan for where you're going to be, you can't work towards, moving to doing the thing you want to for your career.
Exactly. And that goes with anything in life, though. If you don't know where you're going to go, you're just going to float like a boat without oars.
Clarity is one of the greatest gifts that someone can give you. The idea that I have a point on a horizon that I'm going to, and if I just hit these 5 benchmarks, I can get closer to that end goal of doing my art full time, of being published by Random House.
You could even break those 5 benchmarks down into smaller goals in themselves to make it seem like you're making more progress.
I'm all about, little actions over time lead to huge results.
Yeah. There's also a huge, confidence booster, I suppose. Having made a set of, say, this is my overall goal. These are my intermittent
goals.
Points in between. That's one. Yep. Intermittent goals, and these are the baby steps that I'm going to take to get to them. It's incredibly rewarding seeing the progress and being able to go, I did all of that. They may be little things, but I did them.
I mean, it's amazing. After a year, you can write 5 books if you really wanted to. I mean, you're looking at a 60,000 word book at 1,000 words a day times 4 is 240,000 words.
Well, look at NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, which is in November. The challenge is to write 50,000 words in a month. It can be done. I did it with a newborn.
I mean, it's really only an hour a day. Honestly, I mean, an hour a day can get you 1,000 words, and 1,000 words over 90 days can get you a 90,000 words novel. Just like with art, like I'm sure you, for a long time, did sketches, right? Like did 1 sketch a day. And you see that progress over time. I mean, after a year, you have 365 things you could potentially add to your portfolio.
Exactly. I do a sketch a day just because I allot an hour a day to just sketching. I use that time to focus on anatomy, things that I feel I can improve on. Hands, feet, facial expressions, different species, that kind of stuff. And it's cool because I look at work that I did a year ago and see the progress that I've made, even just from an hour of sketching a day. I made quicker progress when I was doing 12 hours a day, but I don't have the luxury of that much time.
Right. Well, on top of that, I'm sure it's the same with marketing, right? I mean, if you put an hour into marketing a day and you get, let's say, 1 lead a day, over a year, that's 365 leads. Even if you just get 1. If you get 5 people to your mailing list a day or 1 person to your mailing list a day, at the end of the year, you've got 365 people on your mailing list.
Exactly. And audience. It builds your audience. And audience is important. The bigger the audience, the more likely there are going to be more people who are willing to pay for your product.
The only real important part in the whole world, because no one's going to convert 100% of the people that they find. So if you can convert 10% of the people that you meet to sale, then if you meet 1,000 people, you're going to get 100 sales. If you meet 100,000 people, you're going to get 10,000 sales.
The thing to remember is that not everybody has a large disposable income to throw money at, but they can support you in other ways. There are people who follow me who occasionally like recommend me to other people.
I did my first Kickstarter, and the biggest single pledge was the last day of the Kickstarter. My friend, who'd only pledged like $20 to the campaign, shared my post, and somebody pledged $250. Sight unseen from the book, just because she shared it. So yes, absolutely. But the bigger your network is, just like you were talking about before, not being a jerk and being nice and commenting on things, that builds your network, and that network then has a network themselves. And if you can pull a little bit of their network, then instead of you having to rely just on yourself, every time you post something, if 5 people share it, you get a little bit of boost from all of that network, because you would hope that your friends and the people that you comment on are like-minded, and so the people that they are friends with are also like-minded.
And it just builds and builds and builds. And when you pull in some of their network, it builds on your network, so your network gets bigger, but the secondary network also gets bigger because there are more people.
I mean, it's multi-level marketing at its like core. Most businesses, you have one person at the top who has 2 people at the bottom, who have 4 people below that, who have 8 people below that, who have 16 people below that, who have 32 people below that. And as long as you're starting with the right customer avatar profile, so that the people that you're friends with and the people that like you and the people that you're targeting are people that actually like your book, there's a very good chance that the people that like your book or like your project are also going to like other projects that are similar to yours, and that their friends are going to like things that are very similar, and then those people's friends are going to like things that are similar. So you end up having this spider branch that only happens really when you hit this critical mass of enough people, because like we were saying, if you've got 10 people, there's only a chance of one person really following you. But if you've got 1,000, 100 people might be following you for real. If you've got 10,000, 1,000 people might be following you for real. And this is a great quote that I heard previously. If you have 1,000 people all willing to give you $100 a year, you've made $100,000 a year. That's really not that many people. I mean, in a world of 7 billion people, you're looking for 1,000 people willing to give you $100.
If 1,000 people gave you $1, you'd have $1,000.
That's true. That's also, I mean, that's still more than $0. No matter what it is, Exactly.
If 50 people gave you $10, that's $500.
If you get more, right? You get more people, then you get, if that number triples, you get 3 times as many. As long as, your number stays the same. If you have 1,000 people and 50 people are going on there, then if you have 10,000 people, then 500 people will be on there, and your income will triple. As long as you're going to the same market, theoretically, those numbers should be able to be scalable infinitely. I mean, it's the core and marketing is the core of business. Would you tell the nice fans how they can get in touch with you and find you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay, the easiest way to get in touch with me is Facebook, but I also have a Fur Affinity or FA and a DA.
What is the name?
You just want to make me say it. Shuntukatha.
That is not even close. You told me that when I said it earlier, I was close.
That was a better approximation than a lot of things that I have heard. So
I'm going to link it in the show notes, but say it one more time.
Shuntukata.
Is not what I said earlier. I said, just so you guys know, I said Sunk Tok Eka. That is, I'm very glad I made you say it, because that would be a horrible butchering of what was, when you said it, a beautiful name. So, we will end on that, and thank you so much for being here, Kat, and thank you guys so much for taking the time to get through this long ranting diatribe that we just had. Have a great day. So that was Kat Ranson, and I'm going to admit, we kind of went on a rant there towards the middle, but I think we pulled it back to the end. I definitely think that the information that you got in this episode was excellent, and especially the part about devaluing art. That's becoming a big theme in this show, is devaluing art and trying to convince people that, they're worth more than they actually think. That's a huge part of being in this business, and thinking of your art as a business is understanding that it does have value no matter what other people say. So that's pretty much it. Please do check out our Kickstarter for My Father Didn't Kill Himself. Please go to kickstarteruniversity.com and join our mailing list. You get a lot of free stuff there and a lot of awesome courses. Also go to wannabepress.com. Also, if you subscribe to that mailing list, you get a couple of free comics, and every week you get a webcomic roundup delivered right to your inbox with a bunch of thoughts, theories from me about what's going on in the world. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do subscribe. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to see on the podcast, and we will see you next time. Have a great day, guys. Bye.